Wednesday, August the 1st, Hussein Pacha, the local commander, starts mustering his men for an ambush on the Kabul road, calling the roll and distributing ammunition. Altogether, about 200 men had been called up, a big group by local standards, but only 120 or so would take part in the operation. The rest would be in support, making sure the main force received supplies of food and ammunition. First, each man received a handout of 9mm ammunition for his Kalashnikov rifle. Many Mujahideen groups have been penetrated by the HUD, the local equivalent of the KGB, and so each Mujahid now carries an identity card with his photograph.
Basir Khan Alhamdulillah, ودري شابس يوزي بصير الحمد لله بابركم ملاجان شابس ملا خليل وافتقول
One of the problems the Mujahideen face is finding men skilled enough to be SAM operators. Few Mujahideen have any military training, although they all have a natural aptitude for arms, and few have much formal education. Our group took in 6 SAM-7s, representing an investment of $1.5 million. This is the SAM-7B, the latest version, a heat-seeking missile designed to lock on to an aircraft's exhaust. It has a range of 3 miles and a speed of 1,250 miles an hour. Chinese pressure mines made of plastic, so they're hard to detect. By removing the detonator in blue, so that they no longer act as pressure mines, packing them with extra explosive, and then wiring them up in batches, the Mujahideen hoped to pull off a spectacular ambush. There were generous supplies of C3 blasting gelignite, which is remarkably stable to handle. Looks and smells like marzipan, and can give you a nasty headache if you inhale the fumes for too long. Pound for pound, it's probably the most powerful explosive in everyday use. The plan here was to set off the mines in batches of 16 by remote control. It was an ambitious plan, perhaps too ambitious, and meant that each batch had to be wired together and then wired separately to a remote control exploder. I found myself reflecting, as on my trip 2 years ago, that although they may lack conventional military skills, the Afghans have a lot of ingenuity and are remarkably good at improvising. Well, the ambush site has finally been chosen, and this group of mine layers is setting off now to plant 80 mines on the main road, which is just over that hill down at the bottom of a steep gorge. It's the main road from Kabul, the capital, to the important provincial city of Jalalabad, and along it run big Russian convoys regularly, up to 250 or 300 vehicles, some of them carrying ammunition, petrol, and troops. Now today a big convoy went along that road, but the guerrillas weren't ready. So they're hoping there'll be another convoy tomorrow or the next day. A group of young boys carries the last of the mines up the hillside. The rest of the force camps out at the foot of the mountain and prays for victory in the coming battle. Buoyed up by the belief that a place in heaven awaits the martyrs of the jihad. I wrote in my diary, their spirits seem very high, no sign of nerves. They despise the Russians as soldiers. The only thing they fear is their air power. Dawn, Friday, August the 3rd. In the middle of the picture, a Russian post guards the road to Kabul with tanks and a garrison. Well, the ambush plans seem to have gone wrong. We think the Russians know we're here and that the road is mined, because last night apparently the guerrillas made a lot of noise planting the mines, and the Russians opened fire, although haphazardly, the guerrillas say. What we do know is that the Russians have now blocked all civilian traffic on the road in both directions, and we're now waiting to see what happens next. What happened next was that the Russians started to mortar the mountaintop where we were. Well, the Russians have got us pinned down on the side of the mountain at the moment, and they're lobbing mortars. That's one just gone off on the top, just over the top here. And down below us on the road there are 5 Russian tanks. We can't see them because the gorge is very steep. They're shooting back up at the Mujahideen positions with tank guns, the main gun, and also with machine guns. And the Mujahideen are shooting back at them with RPG-7s, rocket-propelled grenades, and machine guns. And we're waiting to see whether the Russians are going to put in an airstrike. It came at noon, 2 Mi-24 helicopter gunships armed with rockets and cannon, flying too high for the SAMs. When the first gunship opened fire, the rockets went right over our heads. Then the second gunship lined up and fired. The rockets smashing into the hillside above us. So the element of surprise having been lost and the ambush obviously not going to take place now, the guerrilla commander has ordered his troops, who've been down there in the gorge all day, to pull out tonight. It just shows you today's action how easy it is for the Russians to keep a grip on this road. They've got strong posts all along it, about 2 miles apart, from which they can rake the mountainside with heavy mortars and tank fire. But it also shows just how easy it is for the guerrillas, the Mujahideen, to cut the road at any time. Today they've stopped all traffic for the whole day and we don't know when it's going to start again. It shows you that they are in a very strong position to cut the road whenever they want to. And today, in fact, they have knocked out 2 tanks. But the hard fact is that due to lack of professionalism, what might have been a famous victory for the Mujahideen ended as just another skirmish. Surprisingly, casualties were very light, only 2 wounded. Looking after wounded Mujahideen is one of the things the Russian defectors do voluntarily. They have some first aid training. In Naumov's case, it runs in the family. His mother was a doctor, his brother is a dentist. This man was wounded by pieces of shrapnel from a mortar. The Mujahideen have almost nothing in the way of medical supplies. A serious wound usually means gangrene and death. By showing they care, the Russians are no doubt making their own act of atonement for the behavior of their fellow countrymen. But for Naumov especially, their defection to the Mujahideen is much more than a personal protest.
Пока мы находимся в Афганистане, мы бы хотели как можно больше распространить информации, точной, да, правдивой информации среди советских солдат, которые служат сейчас в Афганистане. В дальнейшем, конечно, мы постараемся, в общем, расширить свою деятельность в Афганистане. Пока что нас 3, но, как говорится, 1 в поле не воин, а 3 уже воины. Поэтому мы, в общем, выпускаем листовки на русском языке. Значит, записывали мы на кассету специально для советских людей, живущих в Советском Союзе. Значит, программы делали, рассказывали правду о Афганистане. И много другой работы. В общем, написали там письмо Черненко и сделали, в общем, выполнили много работы в Афганистане. Можно привести очень много примеров о жестокостях, творящихся в Афганистане, о том, как советские солдаты, порой накурившись наркотиков, идут в бой и, не осознавая того, что они делают, в общем, творят они невероятно ужасно в Афганистане. Но практически за наркотиками, за употреблением наркотиков в Афганистане, в общем, никто из руководства, из военного руководства не следит, потому что это играет в какой-то степени на руку советскому правительству, советской политике.
This village was bombed by the Russians last winter. 2 people were killed. The remaining 11 families fled as refugees, except for 1 man, Gul Mahmud. His family are all now in Pakistan, but he came back alone to work the land and to help the Mujahideen. Just below the village were 2 unexploded Russian bombs. Plotnikov, who comes from Moscow, was trained as an engineer in bomb disposal, and he offered to help get rid of them. A lump of gelignite is shaped and placed against the casing of the 500-pounder. The detonator is pushed home into the gelignite and the fuse wire attached. Plotnikov lights it and runs. He has a minute to get clear.